Huddersfield impressed me. I'm going to go with them to win this game. I'm going to go to the, but I don't. They won't convince. They won't be convincing though, because they do something to wind me up when I pick them. Huddersfield by 4.
I think this is a really difficult one to make a call on because yes, Huddersfield looked very good on Saturday, but how good were they and how poor were Toulouse?
Yeah.
How many would another team have scored against Toulouse? Rovers looked okay for a little bit, but you guys did look good. Again, was that because you were good or was that because Rovers were poor? I think I will go. I'm going to go Huddersfield by 4. I can't remember. Did you say by 4?
We've gone the same. It is a tough one. That one. It is a tough one because you could see like Hull KR exploding as well into life.
Yeah, and Abdul kicking them to death and Mikey Lewis running through them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one to call. I do have some level of trust with Huddersfield's defence under Watson. So I'm sticking with it. Saturday 5 p.m. on Sky. It's Catalans versus Wakefield. You saw Wakefield first hand last week. They lost to your boys, but and they'll be without Reece Lynn, who's one of their cornerstone players really in this game. Catalans though will have no props.
I think Catalans will still have enough. I'm going to go Catalans by 10.
I think they might still have... I think this could be where Pearce actually has a bit of a show. The only problem is can he do that behind not much of a platform? They'll have Cassiano, but he can't play long minutes. I do quite like Desaria. I think he's good. Some of the other younger guys might get their chance. Alan Walker will get what he wants because they'll have to be playing some homegrown guys, won't they? People like Seguier and who else will they have to play in there? Gudemond, people like that. So yeah, skill-wise, I think they should still have enough, shouldn't they? I'm going to go with Catalans to win as well, but Catalans to win by 2.
Ooh.
And you went Catalans as well. Then Sunday, final game, Salford versus Toulouse. Pretty straightforward, isn't it?
I think this will be, a test to see, Toulouse against a different team. Maybe a bit of a test to see how Salford are in relation to Huddersfield. But yeah, Salford by 20.
Yeah, Salford by 24. It's not. It's as much a reflection on Toulouse, but I do think Salford have got confidence. Clearly, the fans have got confidence. If one of them's talking about the grand final in round 1, and so I think that confidence will carry its way through, certainly through this game against the weaker side in the league. Yeah, Salford by 24. Championship game of the week: York versus Lee, Sunday 3 p.m. That's the game of the week. I think Lee they've impressed a bit, but at the same time, have they? Adrian Lamb's attack still in it. York got a good result this weekend against a Batley side that were going well before this. So that should be an interesting game. Hopefully some people will watch that and get the fan reviews in on that one. The TV game is Dewsbury versus Widnes, 7:45 p.m. on Monday night on Premier Sports. Any view on this one?
Surely, I can only see it going Widnes' way.
I agree. They've won a couple of games by big scores. They've won last week in a close, tough game in tough conditions. They've shown they can win. They've got some experience in the side as well, some quality youngsters. Widnes should win that one comfortably.
Yeah.
Make sure you all look out for the Google form for fan views on next week's game. Let's see if we can get above 50 again. That would be fantastic. So please get your fan views in. Particularly, we're going to call it out, that Huddersfield Hull KR game and that Salford Toulouse game, guys. We need to know what you make of those games because we're not going to see them. But we're lucky that there's 4 games on TV again. This is such a treat for the start of the year, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
Okie dokes. That leaves us just with a little bit of a wrapping up to do. Right, Sarah, I've done a quiz for you. I nearly forgot, but then it struck me, what's been the big talking point this weekend? It's cards, isn't it? There were 3 reds and 5 yellows this week in Super League, starting, of course, from the very first play of the very first game, when Gildudson was shown that yellow card for punching out in the melee there after that first tackle. So I'm going to ask you some questions about cards.
Like playing cards?
No, discipline cards.
Okay.
I was thinking how to describe them then. Red and yellow cards. Okay, so the first question, you've got a 1 in 12 chance of getting right.
Right, okay.
According to the Super League website, which team was given the most cards in 2021 with 3 reds and 13 yellows, 16 cards in all?
Ooh.
If you can think back to last year, who did we talk about getting a lot of sin bin-ins?
I can't remember. I've been asleep since last year. I am going to say it was Hull.
No, Hull weren't that bad last year. It was Salford.
Really?
Yeah. No one else had 3 reds, so Salford were the worst in that regard. And Catalans, they also had 13 yellows. They had no... but, yeah, Salford led the league in both. So... I do remember there was a period where it felt like we were talking about Salford yellow cards every week. And so maybe, actually, they're not... That's something that didn't come into my thinking in my pre-season predictions. If they sort the discipline out, although Rowley, does he sort discipline out? Anyway, it was Salford. Second one. Which player received the most cards in 2021 Super League season, getting 4 yellows despite only playing in 9 games?
Flippin' heck. Bentley.
It is James Bentley, yeah. No reds last year, so...
So you've gone one better.
Let's tick that off this week. Finally, 3 clubs didn't get any red cards in 2021, but one of the 3 then saw a player red carded in the first round of 2022. Which side? So basically you got a 1 in 3 chance of, because there was 3 red cards.
Was that Hull?
No, it was Catalans. Despite having 13 yellows last year, they had no reds. But then Dylan Napper got a red in round 1.
Yeah.
The other teams who didn't have any reds were... I can't remember now. Castleford and Wakefield were the other 2 teams that didn't have any red cards last year.
Wow.
In Super League. And finally, news topic. And people might notice there was one topic we didn't talk about when we were talking about the St. Helens versus Catalans game. But Saints are investigating an allegation of vile racist abuse aimed at a young rugby league fan who was at the game supporting Catalan Dragons on Thursday night. Oliver, a 7-year-old rugby league fan, was left in tears by the abuse on Thursday. His mother said. Really sad story, this one, isn't it?
It's horrific. He's not French. He's not even primarily a Catalan fan. He's a Hull fan who sat in front of us at Magic Weekend on the Sunday. He lives over in Liverpool and plays for Pilkington Rex. Really nice family. He's been on like Wigan, Saints, Warrington, Salford, all the different, as well as Hull, like the kids' summer camps and things like that. Just loves his rugby.
Yeah, and it's a group of apparently a small minority, but of absolute idiots.
I mean, to abuse anyone for their shirt, I appreciate you get, a group of fans having a go at the opposition, but when it's picking on one person and a small child. There's just no excuse.
No, it's appalling. I don't know what level the situation got to with what the abuse was, whether it was, jokes gone wrong or mean-spirited in nature or whatever it was. It's all of it's stupid and totally unnecessary, and it's a real sad story to talk about. But hopefully it doesn't dampen his love for rugby league overall, and he realises that the club that's nearest to where he lives have some fans that he doesn't want to be part of.
Yeah.
Poor kid. I'm sure everyone will be rolling out the red carpet for him, though, to make sure he gets some good experiences of rugby league this year.
Yeah. Apparently he's a massive fan of the St Helens women's team. That's, he's there supporting.
Makes it even sadder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for us, other than not abusing children?
And don't develop COVID or have people in your family developing it. I got Peter a game for Christmas called New York Zoo, which we've very much enjoyed playing. We had played once before. We both played. Each person's got a zoo. You have to build enclosures for your animals. It's a bit Tetris-like. And I've not quite worked out all the tactics in which to beat Peter yet.
So is it a board game, a computer game? What is it?
So you each have your own board, which is effectively a zoo that you've got to fill with enclosures, which you then put different animals in, and as you move around like a central board, which shows you, when you can add animals to your zoo and things, and your enclosures fill, then you can get more enclosures and you can get amusements that can fit the gap, because ultimately you've got to fill all the squares on your zoo. So it's quite fun. Definitely look it up if you're into your board games.
It's weird because my recommendation this week was going to be a board game as well. Well, it's going to be a board game as well. I was playing Listography at the weekend. It's kind of like, it's a list game. You write lists, but it has three different categories. So one's where you've got to match with just one other person that's playing. One where you've got to get answers that no one else has got, and one where you've got to get answers where as many people as possible get. So there's different games within the game, sort of thing. What I really like about it is it's not a game where the super competitive people take over the game, or the people with certain kind of minds that are attuned for board games take over the games. I do think it's got a bit of a leveling aspect to it, to the way it can be played. So I say that because Emma's not hugely competitive, and she always thinks she's rubbish at board games, but she's not. But sometimes she gets kind of crowded out a bit.
Yeah.
We played it with another couple who were a bit like us in the way that we set up. Like the guy is more competitive than the girl, and that sort of situation. But we all enjoyed it, and it felt like an even competition, as it were.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think it's one where you can super learn tactics for either, really, because you can overthink yourself sometimes, and then that gets you to the point where you're the worst person because you're overthinking it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Board games this week, fair enough. So if you're not watching rugby league, you can play board games, because we're not getting out because it's pissing it down all the time. Yep. And blowing a gale all weekend. But that doesn't mean that we've not got a show to talk about next week. So if there's anything we've talked about this week, cards, goal kicking, the drug story, any of those things that you want us to have a bit more of a chat about next week, then send in your feedback. Sarah's going to tell you in a minute how to do that, and then we'll also obviously be covering round 2 of Super League, so hopefully we've got lots to chat about, me and David, next week on the show. Do you want to remind people about how to get in touch, where to find us, that sort of stuff?
So you can get in touch at Super League Pod on Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/superleaguepod, superleaguepod@gmail.com if you want to send us an email, or you can find us at superleaguepod.com. You can search for the show on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Spotify, Overcast, or anywhere you normally find your podcasts. And we're on YouTube too, but audio only.
Yep, shout out to our friends as we depart. Rob's Megastore, enter SLP10.